The following podcast contains opinions which are intangible and pose no threat to your safety. It also contains spoilers, which are very real and may harm your viewing experience. You've been warned.
I've been really putting an effort into forcing myself to sit down and play some games. I mean, I go through these sort of extremes where it'll be 6 months where all I do is I come home from work and I just play games, or basically I'm not being productive.
Right.
And while games is a very rewarding way to not be productive, it's still not getting stuff done. So then what happens is I overcorrect, and then all I do is I come home and work on the house and walk the dog. And I mean, I do that every day anyway, but all this stuff that I feel like has been piling up. And honestly, what it needs to be is what I've sort of settled on now is do 2 or 3 hours of something after I get home from work, and then allot myself leisure time. But it's if I just let myself get complacent one direction or the other, either I start a game, I put 20 hours in and then never touch it again. And by the time I do come back to games, I'm distracted by something else, which is no good. Or I like I said, I don't get anything done, and then I play a lot of games, and that was how I put 188 hours into Warframe by accident. But
okay, so Warframe is a good example. So my problem is that I'll play games and then I'll be like, oh crap, I have way too much work to do, and then I'll just go. And it's not even just games; it's just any kind of entertainment media.
Mm-hmm.
I just will not partake of, and I'll just keep working on stuff. But when I do go back to that, entertainment media, and I start playing, the problem is I found games that are just all encompassing. So I stick to the same 3 games. Right now it's just Overwatch, Minecraft, and then Mario Odyssey. Those are literally the 3 games that I will just play nothing up. Because both all 3 of those games can satiate me for hours, and I feel like I never have to they're made to be able to play whenever, right?
Absolutely. No, and the funny part about that is it kind of brings it full circle in that I usually am that type of person. I mean, Warframe was sort of the most recent example. Actually, it wasn't. Path of Exile was after Warframe, but I think I was aware of the trend I was setting for myself, and so Path of Exile didn't last nearly as long. It's very nice to have that sort of chicken soup for the video game soul, where you go back and it's this game is familiar, I know it in and out, I can just play it whenever. It's the combination of a lot of things, but I think it's what I was saying about WoW. I think it was the last episode where it's a living game. Right? As long as the developers continue to support it, you'll always have something there that you can go back to, even if it costs you $60 in 2 years or something. But
right, no, that's exactly it. I mean, Minecraft just came out. I mean, that came out 2010, and they just came out with a new update that just completely changed the entire game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they just came out with this new patch that made water act like water, and there's all these new underwater stuff. And
I heard about that.
And it's there's dolphins and crap now. What the heck? And it's fun to explore. And then it reminds me, oh, I love Legos. Might as well start building things and be creative. And then I also do that that thing I call virtual pacing. You know what I mean? Where it's just I have to do something kind of habitual while I'm talking to people, right? So I have a meeting with a client or something, or there's something I'm doing where I'm talking, but I have to be doing something with my hands. So I'll just hop on Minecraft and just run around for a while. And then after that call ends, I'm still on Minecraft for an hour or two.
That's so relatable. You know, because I work in an office setting, so quite often I'll have to sit on phone calls, and just by virtue of the fact that like the way our team is set up is like maybe only about a quarter of a call it directly relates to me. So I'll be sitting there, and about 2 minutes into a conversation where I don't need to say anything, I'll just start searching around, like, and I try my best not to slack off too much and do things completely unproductive. So like,
of course,
I'm a computer programmer. I look up stuff about computer programming, but I get halfway through an article and all of a sudden I hear my name and I realize like, oh shit, like I was supposed to be paying attention.
that was a problem with the first episode of this podcast. So what I'm doing right now, and what I've been doing, what I always do when we call, is I play with Silly Putty. Silly Putty, or I have an X-Acto knife that I like to twirl around. Yeah, that was one of the problems. Is like, so we were talking, and like when it first started out, like I'd just be playing with Silly Putty, and then like I'd be like, oh, let me just like make this real quick, and then it'd be like, oh wait, that's right, I'm supposed to be engaging in conversation right now. So I've kind of just put the Silly Putty away, and now I just twirl around a X-Acto knife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it is. Like my brain has to have that. I don't know what you'd call that. I'm sure there's a term for it, but heck if I know.
I mean, you kind of need to like, you're not using as much of your brain by talking as you have available, right? And so the other parts of your brain are kind of just sitting there like twiddling their thumbs, metaphorically speaking. So
I'm sure there's got to be a link to like ADD or like red dye that's used in food or some bullcrap.
Probably, but this is not a diagnostic psychology podcast.
There it is. You are right.
What is
now
this, Bam?
Cam. Oh, all right. I'll tell you what this is. This is Bits, Chips, and Flip Scripts, the podcast where we take a look at elements of gameplay and narrative in video games,
and we butterfly that shit.
We butterfly effect. And actually today we've got a pretty special game.
Very special to me, in fact. Yeah. At least.
No, it's a very, I forgot how, I don't want to use the term deep, but just because for the pun effect, I do not want to use the term deep. But this game, it's a very cognitive game.
And
it's
quite
also
by design,
like,
from what I understand.
Yes. And I forgot how interesting the gameplay elements of it. It's just a good game. This is a great game.
Oh man, understatement. Okay, like it's BioShock, just so everyone knows where we're at.
Yeah, we are looking at the spiritual successor to System Shock.
Yeah, and the thing, just you saying that like sparked my memory. Like this game could have probably gotten away with having much worse gameplay than it did. Like it's not groundbreaking, and it's not incredible, and it's not like super tight and engineered. It's just fun, you know. It works, and it allows you to traverse the setting while still remaining engaging. It works really well.
I almost think though you're being a little hard on it. I think it does have some very revolutionary moments. I mean, it definitely has that Half-Life 2 element to it, right?
Oh, like, definitely.
Yeah, it's just sort of pick up weapon, run around, shoot some things. I guess technically this is a first person shooter, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. When did this come out? Actually,
if I had to speculate, I didn't look it up. I'm gonna guess 2008, maybe 2007.
Okay, so this did come out after. 2007.
Okay.
So I believe is after Half-Life 2.
Yeah, Half-Life 2 was like 2004 because the first iteration of it came out on the original Xbox, which I thought was strange.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a roommate, still a good friend of mine, but when he moved in with me, he brought all his games, and there was like an Xbox case with Half-Life 2 on it, and I was like, this doesn't add up to me, because I remember it being a big deal that the orange box came out on the 360, which also had Half-Life 2 on it, so it was sort of like a segment fault for me, where I was like, is this like a Mandela effect before that was even a thing?
Yeah, it's weird too. It's something because both of these, I don't know why I keep comparing it to, but like in my recent playthrough, I definitely sort of, the parallels were there for me, right? They were just something that I picked up on, and I don't really know why. Something maybe is because like holding one guy's holding a crowbar, the other one's holding a big wrench, right? Like
yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you exactly what it is, and that is that it's something that Half-Life 2 did incredibly deliberately, maybe even Half-Life 1, although I'm far less familiar with that one.
Same.
Which is that two things. Number one,
yeah,
your protagonist is silent and does not have a personality of their own. So it frees the player to project themselves onto the protagonist. And number 2 is it never, I won't say never, BioShock does in one very specific point, but other than that, never takes control away from the player. So it's an entirely, to use a word you hate, immersive experience. You are made to feel like a part of the world. I don't hate the word
immersive. I just think it was a buzzword for a while there.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's a very general thing for something that is a very specific feeling.
Yes.
But no, and I agree though. I think if we were to use that word, these games are both very immersive. But it's exactly what you said though. The protagonist is silent, therefore they're an audience proxy.
Absolutely.
Right. So and it's different as opposed to like adventure games that do that, like Zelda. Actually no, I wouldn't say that. I feel like the early Zelda games were pretty much as immersive as it gets, right? Like you were the one on the adventure.
Yeah.
Which, so yeah, I guess that fits too.
so much of so much of the Zelda sequelitis by Egoraptor, for those who don't know, was sort of like drawing that parallel. Like up until Link to the Past, it was like you open the chest, you look at the thing that came out, and you like get that moment of awe. Whereas when you're in a 3D Zelda game, you watch your character open the chest and react to what's in there, exactly. And you still have to wait.
Yeah, I get that. But anyway,
back to BioShock.
Right. I feel like there's something a little more there for me anyway, is that because I love a good story. And a parallel I have with these two games is that they both have very compelling stories that provide a lot of like introspection, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I don't know why both of these are like, I don't know why they did that, but they did. Like they're like, oh yeah, this is a gun, or this is the game where you shoot people, you shoot things that come at you. Let's also give it a super heavy story. Mm-hmm. Like it just, and they tell the story through like the shooting and stuff. It's crazy. I feel like these are the only games that ever did that. I mean, or have done it since, right? Like I'm sure there are others out there that,
at least the only ones that sort of entered the public consciousness.
That's what I'm saying. Like mainstream wise, like I can't think of any other games that do that. These games, they sat there and they took what is a very basic gameplay element and they wrapped around this very heavy narrative, which I think is great. I guess a lot of people would probably try to argue that Halo does something like that, but Halo...
I was just thinking of Halo, right? Like
when I think of Halo or I think of Mass Effect, I think of those games, or even, what's the other scary space one?
Dead Space?
Dead Space. Yeah, like those games, as far as their story structure goes, it's... Compared to this, it's child's play.
Yeah.
Like... This is, and Infinite tries. It's funny because I actually think this game has a more of a better constructed story than its predecessor, BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite, which I do love the story behind it, but
you mean Ancestor?
I said predecessor, didn't I?
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page here.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So point is, BioShock Infinite, it definitely tries a little too hard for my taste. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But BioShock, it has a great story to it, and it makes the experience so much more fun because not only do you feel like, oh, you're a part of this world, you also feel like, oh, you're a part of these events, and I feel like that's very important.
Sure. And like one thing I do want to say that I didn't even notice until 2 hours ago when I was like sort of putting my final thoughts down. I was looking at some of the maps for some of the areas, and it's like there's only like 4 or 5 like segments to each level. They're not particularly large, but the most recent time I played this game was not actually very recent, but it was probably like 5 years ago. And sure. I still, like, after having played it numerous times and had like a lot of time to digest it, I still felt like they were huge areas, right? Right. Even though they aren't upon like further reflection. And what that really goes to say is just like how much care they took and how much they really filled in the little details in every nook and cranny of every area to make it feel huge, because every segment, every inch, not every inch, but has significance. It's just packed to the gills with content, so to speak.
Right. I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but like I I love being rewarded for exploration. That's my biggest thing. I hate games where you have this expansive, I'm not even going to say expansive world, but just like an expansive area you can check out, right? Mm-hmm. Something fun, and then you choose to go in a direction that's not the obvious direction to go in, and there's just nothing there. Right, and I hate that. That to me is a slap in the face.
Oh yeah,
it's like, hey, I'm playing your game and I'm exploring what you've left out here, and you're not gonna give me anything for that. Like I hate that. This game, it always has something, even if it's just like a little currency. Yeah. There's always something there in some kind of nook or cranny that you can explore and find. And
well, the thing is too that like stuff. Because like even if one out of every like 10, let's say even 20 little nooks that you go to explore has something, what that 20th nook has makes the other 19 worth it.
No, absolutely.
Because just in the act of going out of your way to find these things, you know that something's coming up and you know it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's a super it's good.
It's good.
It's just good.
You took the word right out of my mouth.
Yep. Can you tell we've been on vacation? Whee!
Hey. I'm also drinking wine this time, which is a first for the show.
Wine. Interesting. Yeah. That sounds awful. I am not a huge fan of wine. Is it red or white?
Specific type. It is red.
It is red? Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah. I like dry red wines, and that's about the only ones that excite me.
Nah, I'm down for like a good Pinot Grigio, but anyway, what is this? A wine podcast? Nah, son. This is Bits, Chips, and Flip Scripts. So let's get into that narrative, shall we? All right. So
yeah.
So basically, the way this game starts off is after crash landing in the ocean, Jack, right? I always forget because I always just think of it as like, oh, it's me.
I believe the only time, and I could be wrong, although I shouldn't be with how much I've played this game. The only time that his name is mentioned is actually on the letter that you open in the opening scene, and of course it's from a first person perspective, so you're looking at the letter when the game opens, and then you like look up at something else, and I think it's addressed to Jack, and I really think that's the only time that
I don't know where I picked that name up from. I for a second I thought I was confusing it with BioShock 2, but we'll just go with Jack. So anyway, so Jack survives a plane crash, only to be thrusted into what is basically hell, the underwater city of Rapture. He's then guided via communique by Atlas, a man looking to save his family and then escape the city once and for all. While discovering the mystery of Rapture and putting to rest the maniacs in power who caused its downfall, Atlas' family is killed. He gets super angry about it, and he wants to then get revenge. They're killed by the city's founder and also like corrupted leader, Andrew Ryan, which is a play off of Ayn Rand, right? I believe
Ayn Rand, yeah.
Ayn Rand, that's who it is, yes. Because all this whole video game, which we'll get to later, is based, not based off of, but it's
skewers objectivism.
Yeah, it's definitely plays into Atlas Shrugged, which I was not a huge fan of, by the way. I don't know if you were or not. Have you read Atlas Shrugged? You never have?
I haven't. No, I mean...
you totally should.
I'm familiar with its, like, cultural impact.
Yeah, no, because I know you are, like me, you're a budding enthusiast of, like, economics and stuff like that, and politics. I feel like you
less
really
so
would
as the
enjoy
days go on, but yes.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway. So, yeah, so you're... Hot take, indeed. So you're trying to kill Andrew Ryan and win your freedom, but the mysteries of Rapture are far deeper than the city itself, and you stumble upon some pretty interesting twists and turns that I'm not going to spoil for you.
Yeah,
this moment, but we'll probably spoil for you later.
This of all the ones we've done so far merits the biggest and shiniest neon spoiler warning.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is your last chance. If you haven't played it, you totally should, because the spoiler kind of.
What are you doing if you haven't played BioShock?
That's a fair point too. BioShock is totally worth it, and it's
so good.
It's definitely one of those games where it kind of revolutionized the industry just a little bit, right? Like, am I wrong in saying that? I feel like
you're right,
accurate.
but it oddly enough, thinking back, like it didn't do it in an annoying way. Like I don't feel like no because like
what do you mean annoying?
I don't think
I hate it when games revolutionize things.
Yep, and then they wear pink sweaters and they show up at your house trying to sell you things. No, just that like I don't know. I mean, the what we're going through now is the annoyance of Fortnite, right? Like,
Okay,
PUBG came out, and then Fortnite copied PUBG. Now everyone wants to copy Fortnite, and before that it was COD, and before that it was, MOBAs, right? Like League of Legends.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna stop you right there because there's a difference between like having an influence on a game and then completely creating a new genre, right? Like battle royals or battle royales weren't really a thing, right? Like no computers just didn't process that kind of stuff, and then now we're capable of doing it, so it came about and it's huge now, and I get that. And like Minecraft did the same thing, right? Like because of Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5 was the way it was. It was all about the sandbox, right? Sandbox was a huge thing. And arguably, you could say even to this day, like, that's kind of why Breath of the Wild is the way it is. Like, people like sandbox games. And that really wasn't a thing before that.
I mean,
because
I think
they were too obscure. You know what I'm saying? Like, people didn't know what the heck was going on. They needed some kind of direction.
That's fair. Although I think if we're in the interest of authenticity, like, I think GTA 3 was probably the first real like sandbox game that people were aware of.
I don't know. Okay, so here's my hot take on that one. Which I love GTA 3. GTA 3 was like that was the one I'd always rent and play.
For me, it was Vice City. Go on.
Vice City was okay. Actually, wait. Am I thinking of Vice City? I thought Vice City was 3. What's 3?
3 is 3.
3's
in Liberty City. I mean, it's honestly like not a lot about it has held up. Like the story wasn't particularly groundbreaking. It was just like
I thought Vice City was the third one in the franchise. Huh. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Then Vice City then, because Vice City. So was GTA 3 still top down?
No.
Or was that 3D?
No, GTA 3 was 3D, and that's why it was so influential. Like, they created the city for you to run around in. And again, other people probably did it, but I think GTA 3 was considered to be, by most people, the first time it was done correctly.
Okay. Which one was the 80s one?
That was Vice City.
That was Vice City? Okay, that's the one I'm talking about. Obviously, I just love that franchise. But no, like, I mean, like, but yeah, regardless, between GTA 3 and Vice City, like, I mean, as sandbox as it was, you only really did like 3 things. It was put in the code, get the money, get the guns. That's what it was. That's all you did. I wouldn't really call that a sandbox when like you really only had like 4 things to do with your time. But it definitely, I can see. I will give it credit though, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of the start. But I feel like it was really Minecraft that really took off with that, being a literal fucking sandbox.
Sure. I mean, yeah, in the purest sense of the term, I would absolutely agree that Minecraft did what you're saying.
But anyway.
So we got to change this game.
Yes, we do have to change this game.
It's so good, and it's our unfortunate duty to do so, but we have to change it.
Oh, maybe we can change it for the better, or potentially for the worst. We've yet to change something for the worst, so let's wait. This might be the one. All right, Cam, what are we doing?
All right, our concept is instead of Atlas, the swarthy Irishman who leads the rebellion against the father of Rapture, Andrew Ryan, the player is led through the underwater city by Sander Cohen, a madcap and dangerously unstable tour de force in Rapture's art world.
Ooh, a tour de force. I feel like if there's any way to describe Sander Cohen, that's probably the best way to do it.
I have to say, I have my notes section and my change section, and my notes section has one note in it, and that is that Sander Cohen section, Fort Frolic, is hands down the best part of the game.
No, absolutely.
No contest in my mind.
In fact, just before we started recording this, I did watch Mark Brown's video on it just to
I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen Mark's? Oh,
I have this thing I get to watch for the first time about BioShock that I haven't seen from a guy I like a lot.
Right? Oh my gosh,
dude,
this is good.
What a good day.
No, it's a fantastic video, and it playing through Fort Frolic, I didn't. It definitely stands out because of how different it is. But yeah, I definitely would suggest watching Mark Brown's video on it because he really lays out like, oh, this is why it stands out. And I guess as far as like fans of the franchise go, like it's considered like one of the best, which I wasn't aware of, but I can totally see why. It's super cool.
It's so
and
good.
I feel like Senator Cohen as a villain in general is extremely interesting, if not the most interesting villain you have in the game. So I was very excited to make this change because I feel like it's subtle enough to where it's not going to change everything completely, but he's such a fun character to play with. And I want to start off by like the first change. And so again, last chance for spoilers, but so the code word, that's got to be the first thing to change.
Okay.
Right? So the Atlas's code is would you kindly, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, what a toy to dare. Would you kindly do this? Toy to toy. You know, whatever in his Irish, which is fine. I feel like, so Sandra Cohen's, I think, would be Little Moth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. That makes so much sense.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
I know, right? So I feel like the whole time is because it's just his pet name for Jack. Whenever he's talking to them, he just calls him Little Moth, a little moth to the flame. Mm-hmm. He's bringing, like this little creature who's just so enamored with the bright light that is Sandra Cohen. And
Can we back up slightly?
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed is that we don't do a really, really good job of like filling people in on some of the key details. I think a lot of times we assume people have played the games, and probably most of them have, otherwise they wouldn't click on the podcast. But I'm willing to be optimistic and assume some people are interested enough to listen to episodes about games they haven't played.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can totally do that.
Yeah,
I'm down with that.
To give a little bit of background, so in the game, you go through the first, levels are a nebulous term in this game, but I'm willing to say about the first 4 levels. It's business as usual. Atlas is leading you. You go to different locales that were once parts of the city of Rapture. Now that the city have descended into anarchy and chaos, following a bloody rebellion. After Andrew Ryan decided to become sort of a despot. The 5th level, give or take, is Fort Frolic. So it starts like any other level. You get off a bathysphere, which you had previously boarded in the previous level.
So bathyspheres are these pods that take you from one place to another.
Yes, they're very small submarines for one person, basically. And they don't have... I don't know if they can propel themselves. Not important. Anyway, you arrive in this level, and it kind of looks like you're just going to pass through. You sort of go from the one you just came off of, you go to get on a different bathysphere, and all of a sudden, like, everything just gets weird. Like, these banners fly up, and there's confetti everywhere. There's a bunny mask, a giant bunny mask that rises over the scene, and all of a sudden, the bathysphere you're about to get on disappears. Your radio goes dead, Atlas can't talk to you, and all of a sudden, Sandra Cohen starts talking to you. And they just do such a good job of setting it up. Like, this is going to be really weird. It's going to be different, and it's going to be unfamiliar, and it's going to be weird.
It's going to be a weird one.
And so basically what happens then is you're in Fort Frolic, which is sort of the leisure district of Rapture. You're led around by this guy. He basically makes you kill 4 of his former apprentices, take their pictures... Proteges. And post them on his quad tick, which is his sort of pièce de résistance. It's just, I mean, really, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but it's just weird, right? It's such a departure from the rest of the game.
Well, that's the thing, right? Compared to the rest of the game, it definitely stands out because this is a character who, like the rest of the people you've met, has gone insane via the
splicing.
Their weird genetic manipulation that they've gotten into. This underwater city is all about. So he's also lost his mind, but he was an artist to begin with. So to say his mind was ever there.
Oh, man, that's some real self-reflection.
Hey, listen, I'm an artist. I'm allowed to. But like, I feel like that's why he's kind of handled it the best, honestly, because everyone else goes on a murderous rampage, and his murder sprees are... Honestly, they're like not nearly as bad as say, what's the doctor's name? I forget. Steinman. Yeah, like there are definitely other characters who are like they are literally insane. Whereas this guy just seems like a normal hateful dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's like we have no way of knowing if maybe he was equally as crazy beforehand. It seems feasible.
I mean, the fact that he's having you go around and take pictures of his dead proteges, he's definitely crazy. I feel like that's fair to say, but he's handling it way better than everyone else. Everyone else is
taking
kind of
it
like
in stride.
Yeah, exactly. He's basically the Joker. He's what's that term? What's it called? I will remember this. He's embraced the absurd. That's what it is. So he's basically sort of sunken into his insanity, allowed it to take hold, and embraced it for more or less. And
sure, it's almost like it opens new doors for him.
Exactly. So
like his sanity was holding him back as an artist.
Almost. That's kind of what it's like. Like he's pretty much like Salvador Dali if you mixed him with a Joker. That's who he is. And so he's super weird. And the gameplay definitely wraps itself around that, where it wants you to realize this isn't your normal villain, right? Yeah. So and it does that by a lot. The first thing you have to do is usually it's some kind of battle. This is a fighty shooty game, right? So the first thing is you watch a guy die and then you win. It literally is. He invites you to this auditorium where this guy's playing a piano. You go there, and then you just watch this guy play the piano. He refuses to play the piano. He gets killed, and then
it's worth noting that the piano is wrapped in dynamite.
Yes, and
it's such a reward again for the discerning player. If you're really paying attention, you could easily walk in there and not really realize what's going on, watch the piano explode and be like, what? And it probably took me till my second playthrough to figure it out. But when you walk in, there's a bandolier of dynamite around that piano.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But so that's the setup, I guess, for who the Sander Cohen person is. And he's one of technically the founding fathers of Rapture. Because there's who is it's so Andrew Ryan, Fontaine, and they're both the big businessman. And then there's Dr. Steinman, you said?
Yep,
and he's the medical marvel. And then you have Sander Cohen, who's the artistic marvel. And then there's the garden lady. I forget who it...
Patricia... Or are you thinking of Tenenbaum?
I keep thinking of Tenenbaum, but it's
the
not
little
her,
sister
someone else.
Woman.
But,
there's so much I want to dig into on this game.
I know, right? But those people are sort of the giants, if you will. Each one of them has... which is why each one has their own segment in this game.
Well, and then Atlas,
they're
an extent.
They're the real sort of meat that made up this city. This very capitalistic city.
Yeah.
So anyway, so when the first change, setting a little more backstory to that. So you find out that Jack is actually the 2-year-old son of Andrew Ryan, who was captured and genetically modified to be a superhuman.
Yeah, to age to the body structure of a 28-year-old.
Yeah. And then was mentally... I don't know what he was brainwashed basically.
Yeah, so he has memories implanted.
His memories implanted. He has a bunch of code words so that they can use him as an assassin. That's the big twist of the game. And he has a code word which is "Would you kindly." So every time, and it's such a great moment in that game because I remember the reveal, and I'll be real, I almost put it together. I remember this too because I knew that the man leading us around, Atlas, wasn't who he said he was. And there was so much talk about Fontaine, I figured that he might be Fontaine.
So can I ask real quick, when did you play this game for the first time? Was it when it came out?
No. It was about a year after it came out. It was no, I'm sorry, it was a little longer than that because it was when BioShock 2 came out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you were still much more discerning than I at that age. I don't know, I don't know that I would have picked up on it now.
Well, I honestly have my mother to thank. She's always, being a writer and all that stuff. I know about when I was what was that, 13, 14 maybe, something like that.
This came out?
Yeah.
We were 16, 17.
Really?
Yeah.
Were we that old? Maybe. Yeah. Oh yeah, because it was high school, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. Anyway, but yeah, like, so like I was well aware of like red herrings and other kind of plot devices like that. So being sort of meta, it's stuff I looked for. And
like a fish that was red.
Yeah, you know, like something like that. We're underwater. There's got to be something around there. Red snapper.
Oh, dang.
Anyway. So yeah, like I picked up on it, but I never like. I like that they took it and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so here's the thing you expected, and here's all of this stuff you never saw coming that was right on your nose. I love that kind of. I'm sure there are people who picked up on it. Like, oh yeah, well that's not that smart. And yeah, I get that. But for me, it did. It was enough to fool me. And the fact that it was under my nose the whole time.
Yeah, one of the few times in a game where my mouth was agape. Right? Like I was just like, oh my goodness. It all adds up. It's so like, oh, it was so good.
Yeah, it was great. So it's weird too, because like the game never forces you to do that kind of stuff, right? That's what I love about it. Yeah. So like he would ask you, you know, would you kindly do this? Would you kindly do that? And then like the game is, because it's a video game, you have to do that to complete the, you know, so you don't even think about it, but it's like, oh yeah, you are being a slave to this game. While the character is being a slave to the character or to Atlas, and it's smart. It was very smart.
And again, anyway. Like probably not the first time it happened in a game, but definitely I think
it was my
first time it was done right.
I would say it's definitely my first experience with it.
Yeah.
So because of that, it does have a special place.
Yeah, which I will admit, like that part of it was kind of beat to death in the years following. So I guess to go back to annoyance, perhaps. But I still feel like it was less than some of those other examples I gave. But yeah. I digress. We can't get hung up on that. We're never going to make it through this.
Oh yeah, no, this is gonna be. But anyway, so yeah, so during Jack's interaction with Sandra Cohen always calls him a little moth, and I feel like that would be the perfect code word that he would use.
Well, and it works so well. I mean, first of all, like it's already all over the game, the original game. But it serves. It's such a similar sort of verbal thing, right? Like it's endearing, right? It's kind of like, hey, like please, like he's pushing you along. I mean, it's creepy because it's Sandra Cohen and he's a fucking weirdo, and he clearly doesn't have your best interest in mind,
right?
But it's still like from a human perspective, from like a purely emotional response, like it really does fill the same role.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I don't want to jump too far ahead. So if you have a change you'd like to address.
I was just going to say, like, the game already plays with your head. I mean, we already sort of blew the first one out, but like even just throughout the game, there are times when it's like it sort of makes you doubt yourself, or at least doubt your character. But with Cohen, I mean, midway through his level, he straight up turns on you and he sends armies of splicers after you while he's playing, what is it, the Waltz of the Flowers, I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
the
from
he's clearly unstable, and like a lot of what he says can't be trusted. And so like as much as the original game already is, I think this version would be even more gaslighty.
Oh no, absolutely. I think, and so here's a big thing. And I'm being full like upfront about this. It's something Mark Brown mentioned. So that moment that you just mentioned, where you're fighting, where he gets angry, right? He started. I don't like people who doubt my
fucking
work.
Doubter.
You know? Yeah, exactly. And so like he attacks you, but really what he's doing is he's having you perform for him.
Mm-hmm.
So the music is on. If you'll note, the spotlight is on you.
Yeah.
And those enemies are super weak. They go down in one hit. Oh. The whole idea is that you're supposed to be dancing with them. And then once you dance to his liking, you know, after you've destroyed all of the enemies or whatever, he's good again. You know, he's like, oh, sorry about that, you know. But really, he was just playing with you. He was just toying with you is what it is. And I feel like if anything else, the whole game would definitely have more of a streak of you don't know exactly if you're being toyed with or if there's something more serious at foot.
Yeah, and I do want to get to that, but there was one other thing that I could kind of slip in here. I don't know, this might be too big. If you want to wait to get to this too, let me know. But
Sure.
the player motivations to advance the game are obviously entirely different because you've got an entire, like the whole first half of the original game, you don't have your own motivations. You're strictly going by what Atlas is telling you, what Atlas is asking you to help him with.
Right. You are a pawn. You are Atlas's pawn. All of your motivations are his motivations.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily know that,
agree.
and they obviously do a great job of making you not necessarily have to think about it too much, but it is the case. It's when you take it from a narrative level, that's the only reason you move the plot forward is because Atlas is telling you what to do.
No, absolutely. And even in if there wasn't that whole he's controlling you plot device going on, you could still argue like you're still aware, like maybe you're just that good guy who's doing it. Regardless, your only intention is to get out of this hellhole, and by doing what this guy says, you will get out of that hellhole.
Exactly.
Right. So that's the only real motivation there is, and I feel like, go ahead, because I feel like we're going on.
I was just gonna say if we take that away, then like what are we left with? We have to fill the void somehow. So. Just to bring everyone up to speed again, for the first half of the game, possibly a little longer than that, you're chasing after things Atlas wants. First, it's his wife and child's safety. That doesn't quite pan out. You get to where they are supposedly being held. Atlas shows up, tries to rescue them. Their prison, which again is another bathysphere, explodes, and Andrew Ryan shows up on the radio frequency to steal the moment from you. After that, Atlas is fueled by his rage and his grief and wants you to help him take Ryan down. To go to Hephaestus and kill the bastard.
Kill the bastard. So now it's all about revenge.
Exactly.
Now you have to perform Alice's revenge in order to be free.
Mm-hmm. So we got to find something, obviously, to push the plot forward.
Did you have something? Because I have a little bit of something.
I had one. I'm not super in love with it, and it's a little bigger of a change than I think we would normally make.
We'll lay it on us. Let's see. We'll see if we can take it or not. Let's go on.
One of Sanders' greatest motivations before the game even starts was this other musician, Anna Culpepper. Did you have anything about her? Yeah, so
not really, but
okay.
Yes.
Her story is she was another musician. You know, there was this whole community of artists and musicians and whatever. I guess Cohen wasn't technically a musician. Anna Culpepper was a musician. She was very critical of Ryan, at least toward the end of Rapture's sort of period of grace. And therefore, when she realized what Cohen was up to, was very critical of him. And she wrote, I believe, a play called Ryan's Songbird. And the poster was headlined with a caricature of Cohen. Long story short, in the original game, Cohen is in Ryan's pocket and convinces him to hire his chief of security to murder Anna Culpepper. This all happens before the game starts. So the reason this is a bigger change than we would normally make is because it doesn't really fit into the bounds of the game itself. But I was thinking, in order to move the plot forward, they would need to have something. And I think Anna Culpepper could sort of be like the midpoint. Right, you think you want to go kill her, like that's supposed to be your big overarching goal. He's telling you she's evil. He's telling you that she needs to die. He's telling you this and that and the other thing. So I think, just in the interest, just thinking like a game designer, if that's like his sort of the flame to which he as a moth would fly towards, so to speak.
Sure.
Then I think she would have to be in the game. I just don't see any way around it.
Well, okay. That is tough because you're right. They did kill her off before the game takes place technically. That's interesting. We could go that route. So I went with something a little more simpler than that.
Okay.
In that, so the motivations behind Standard Cohen are a little more. They play more towards his like lunacy a little bit. So more so the idea, there's a big emphasis on perfection in this game between the lady we can't remember, the botanist who makes the all of the trees and stuff, between the doctors and even Andrew Ryan and Fontaine, everyone
Tanis. Patricia Tanis is the tree lady.
Tanis, thank you. So they everyone has this concept of they're gods, right? They're gods among men. So like Dr. Steinman, he becomes basically a plastic surgeon, and he goes insane because he can't create the perfect lady. Aphrodite keeps letting him down, apparently, right? He's losing his mind, and so like he just, and then you get Tanis, who is creating all these.
Julie Langford. Patricia Tanis was somebody entirely different.
Oh no! Okay, Langford.
I profess myself a diehard BioShock fan. I had to correct that.
That's absolutely fine. No, and you're right. It is Langford because you have to get the that mix from her to save the trees, right? And then she dies in the room when she writes the numbers on the window. I remember now. Okay. So anyway,
Patricia Tanis is from freaking Borderlands. I'm way off base.
Oh wow, jeez. Oh, I mean, listen, that's what Google's for, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he the tree, like they're all she's all about making like the genetically perfect trees and all that stuff. Andrew Ryan's all about being rich and being above cockroaches and all that stuff. So I feel like everything technically has this, despite the fact they're trying to get away from morality. This whole world is all about capitalism, right?
Oh yeah.
It's all about getting away from the morality of religion. It's all about getting away from the confines of a strict government. It's all about being yourself, focusing on yourself, about being about as self-centered as you can get. There's a very strange artistic motif that goes throughout the whole game, which I kind of love. And I feel like who better to play with that than Sander Cohen?
Yeah.
So I think the route it goes is that Sander Cohen, being the perfect artist, is kind of mad at these other artists who are kind of dropping the ball. So I feel like, whereas Atlas wants you to kill them all. Well, he really wants to kill Andrew Ryan, but wants you to remove his competition. I feel like Sander Cohen will kind of have a similar thing, but instead of seeing them as competition, he sees them as holding back the city from what it should be. Right? So sure. He wants you to go from person to person, and he'll have whatever bullshit reason to lead you along the way. But basically what you're doing for him is you're taking the ugly out of his city and you're making it so that he is the brightest light that shines. And then on top of that, because he's got a big thing about having proteges. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that would also be kind of like his secret sort of motivation, if you will, would be also like getting this little moth to be the next Sander Cohen.
Sure. So
that was the route I was going to go with that.
If I may, are you saying that like you said, the existing bosses, not bosses, I guess, in a lot of like.
No, they are. I mean.
Well, Langford's not. You don't ever fight her.
That's true.
But like Steinman is an artist of Madison, blah blah blah. But he's
right, exactly,
like a nutcase, and you're saying he's like taking those types out so that he can be the top nutcase, basically.
Basically, is what it comes down to, because like they're all about being gods, right? They all like instead of praying to a god, they will be the god. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point.
Yeah, right? No gods, no kings, only men is a very famous quote from this. I don't know if it's from this game, but it's in this game.
It's definitely in this game for sure. And and even Atlas, or I'm sorry, Fontaine, he injects himself with all of that genetic material to be like a superhuman, or basically a god among men, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's sort of the goal, and I feel like it would. Although Sander Cohen definitely has this sort of isolated aura about him, where like he doesn't really care what you're doing as long as he gets to do what he wants. Right?
Yeah, he's aloof.
Yes, he doesn't care, right? Like at the end, which I love, because like in at the end of Fort Frolic, when you have to fight him, you don't have to fight him. He will let you go. He's just like, oh, I created my masterpiece. I'm good. You do what you want. You want to go fight Andrew Ryan? Go for it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that I did have something about. But if you're on a roll, I don't want to.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just saying, like, so that would. I feel like we could go that route. Or we could go. We could bring in that musician. What's her name?
Anna Culpepper. Yeah,
we can make her a little more centric, and I feel like whatever choice we choose here will sort of help dictate where we go with the other changes. So what would you think? Not to put you on the spot, but
no. So I mean, just I do think I like yours better. It feels a little less shoehorned. As much as like I definitely did try to go something like Sander Cohen specific.
Yeah. No,
ultimately
you definitely, because you dug into a little more lore than I did.
But ultimately, like, these people are still there. Like, the people that you're... And if you're ostensibly following a similar or the same path through the game, you're going to come up against them one way or another. Otherwise, we have to write a whole new game, which, again, not really our thing.
Right, no, that's not the point, right? We could just rewrite the game in general, but no, we're trying to change it bit by bit, right?
So I think from a principled standpoint, I do like your idea better.
Okay, then.
And it also, like, when it really comes down to it, like what I suggested, the Anna Culpepper thing, like, it doesn't affect a whole lot of the game. It doesn't give us a lot to talk about. Like, she's just there, and she represents the, the Andrew Ryan portion of the game. Although I will say, and this sort of springboards into what I was building up to, is that sort of in the prime of Rapture, as I said, Cohen was sort of one of Ryan's Aaron boys. Sorry, not Andrew boys. Ryan was the Andrew boy.
Yeah.
And so, if you were being led along by Sander Cohen, then by all appearances, you would be implicitly aligning yourself with Ryan, which is a huge change when it all ripples out, because, it's such a big plot point when you come across Ryan. But, so on one hand, it's like, maybe you leave Ryan alive, and then maybe when you get to Hephaestus, he becomes an ally, and then Atlas is more of an enemy than he otherwise would have been. I mean, obviously, he becomes your enemy once you find out who he is, but you don't necessarily need that if you're leaving Ryan alive, right? Like, Atlas is diametrically opposed to what you've been going through this game, believing and all that. And I think that, like, Tenenbaum would turn against you as well. However, when I really sat down and thought about it, the conclusion I came to was that, as you sort of alluded to, when you're in Fort Frolic, Ryan's influence is kind of absent. I mean, as much as Sander Cohen was Ryan's errand boy, he doesn't seem to talk to him or really care what he wants by this point in the game.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because like at that, he cuts off his transmission to you. Sander Cohen does. Yeah. So like he obviously doesn't want you talking to Ryan. He wants to be the focus. And on top of that, at the end of it, he just lets you go and kill. He knows you're going to kill Ryan, and he just lets you go.
Exactly.
He lets you go to do that. I feel like, and that's why I wanted to bring in the idea of, like, I don't think Cohen reveres the city anymore. At first he probably looked at it like this was his, like this whole city was once his canvas, right? But now what is it if it's not just some deteriorated, dilapidated piece of junk, right?
Hard to argue that, my friend.
Yeah. So, and it's actually interesting. You brought that up. You brought up how Fontaine and Ryan would play into it, because if I may bring up something, I feel like what this.
No, you're not allowed to bring up anything.
I know. Oh no!
What do you think you are, co-host of the show?
I feel like since Cohen is sort of the one leading you along, and obviously Ryan would be aware of this, right? He was aware when Atlas was doing it. I feel like having Cohen in power, and you can definitely tell Cohen has an influence, right? You see his masks in the very first part of the game before you even know who he is. Those splicers love Cohen.
Is that established?
They're wearing his bunny masks. They're wearing his, because he was the one. It's his grand ball or whatever. I forgot what party it was.
Okay.
So as far as I'm aware of,
to splinter off, like, that's what's so good about this game. It's been over 10 years, and I've put so much time into this game, and I'm still learning things about it.
Yeah, like
holy crap.
Like, that's why he has that big old bunny mask when he takes away your bathysphere, right? Like,
sure.
It shows up, and it's like, hey, this is my, like, and like the first splicer you meet has that bunny mask, right? I feel like his influence is pretty, like, far stretched, right?
I kind of thought, and I guess maybe this is just me not being intuitive.
Sure.
I kind of thought, rather than like Sander Cohen having the bunny mask and influencing those splicers to wear them, I kind of thought that maybe they were both influenced by a common source. But now that I think about it, your way makes way more sense.
I mean, it could be that way too. I don't think they specifically come out and say it. That was definitely, I feel like that's more of my interpretation. I do know that there was some big like masquerade ball, and I feel like that was probably Sander Cohen's doing. I feel like they did touch on it in the BioShock Infinite DLC, which I never got around to touching.
I didn't either, but I really want to.
So, yeah, now I do too. But yeah, for sake of the story, though, we could go with that. And I feel like, so what would actually happen is, right, the enemy of my enemy, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe Ryan and Fontaine, instead of being at each other's throats, would try to work together to stop you.
Oh, I like this.
So now you have, because remember, when we change something, we don't change like all of the elements. It's just that one element, right? Mm-hmm. So Sander Cohen is leading you. That's what we changed. What we didn't change is who's your father or who genetically manipulated you. That's all the same. Mm-hmm. So we are still Andrew Ryan's kid.
Yeah.
Fontaine still is the one who took us and made us into an assassin.
Yeah,
right?
And it's sort of just a quick little corollary to that is that I do think that in this version that like Atlas was still trying to get to you, right?
Yes.
But it's been established that Sander Cohen has some sort of a jammer, a radio signal jammer.
So that was my second change. Actually, is it makes more sense because like obviously Andrew Ryan knew what was going on. He figured it out. So why didn't he just earlier be like, would you kindly not listen to Atlas? You know what I mean? Like he could have. It's the biggest plot hole in the game. And I'm always willing to overlook it, but it's still like it's there. So yeah, Sander Cohen has control of the radios, all of them. That's his shtick because he's the music guy. Even though I don't think he's a musician himself, he controls the music, right? The industry, any artistic industry. So like it makes sense now because he can override the radio to keep Ryan or Fontaine or anyone from revealing things. Basically, what you hear is what Sander Cohen wants you to hear, and then he'll cut it off when he thinks something it's getting to. So he can play that card to make Ryan and Fontaine seem worse than they are. So when either of them try to, of course, they're both also insane, right? So that's kind of why I think it's not too big of a plot hole because Andrew Ryan is also insane from all the other genetic bullcrap. So he's not necessarily thinking straight, which is why I don't think he's as what's the word? He's as strategic as he could be.
Right. Well, and also like I mean everything bad that happened in Rapture like really can be traced back to him.
Yes.
Because he just got too heavy-handed. He was it's very much the folly of following the letter of the law in violation of the spirit. Yeah. Especially when you're the one writing it. But again, not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
So here's something.
Yes.
So again, like the big thing about Fort Frolic is just how different it is from the rest of the game. It's an enormous departure. And I would think that this could be sort of the would you kindly scene of this version of the game, right?
I agree. No, I absolutely agree.
I think that it would be perfectly fine for your character to see purity of purpose and a real sort of driving goodness behind what Cohen is trying to achieve because you don't know any better for the first couple chapters of the game.
Yes.
I think if you got to Fort Frolic and honestly everything was the same...
which I would leave it the same.
Yeah, because it's so good. It's so good.
It is great.
I think that could be a great opportunity for the character and as a result the player to sort of really see who you're dealing with. Like, oh hey, we're in Fort Frolic and my awful assistants, they strayed from their purpose and we have to make them a part of my masterpiece. And you'd walk in and you'd see the piano scene, which would be even more sinister because I think it would be implied that it had been going on for much longer.
Yeah,
like when you get there in the original game, you don't know how long he's been sitting there playing the piano, but you've been playing this game for 10 hours by the time you get to Fort Frolic. Like,
right.
You could almost assume that this guy had been playing the piano that long, and
so
Cohen
tragic.
waited for you to show up to blow him to smithereens.
So you finally start to figure out, like yeah, it's such a good reveal too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, think how much more of an impact that has, where this guy who, like, you can tell, like, he has his fits of rage every now and then, but he's been leading you along to the point where you feel like, okay, he's good enough, like I can trust him to get me out. And then you see this.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no. Oh no. But so this is where I think, like you said, this would be your would you kindly moment of the game.
Yep.
And I feel like this has to have like just as big of a twist, right? And I feel like what would happen is, so right before this, and play along with me, because I'm changing quite a bit of the story here. So I feel like right before this, you would actually have fought Ryan and Fontaine.
Okay.
You would have met them. They would have tried to confront you about who you are, what you mean to them, and you slay them. But then, like, through digging through more information, you find out, oh, they are, like, Ryan was your father. Oh, Fontaine did do this stuff to you, where he had you manipulated or whatever.
So they're almost like, once they're coming at you as a unified front, then finally at the last hour they sort of try and flip the script, as it were,
exactly,
and try and each turn you against the other.
But unfortunately, it's all too late, and it's all for naught.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn this, and it's tragic because you realize, oh, you were the kid of this one man, you were stolen by Fontaine, and then you were used by Cohen against Fontaine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you've been nothing but a puppet this whole time.
And actually, so, like, one minor point that I had that feeds right into this, that it's like the perfect spot to drop it in, is like, if you're fighting, like, maybe you would fight both Ryan and Fontaine, however that would manifest itself.
Sure, right.
But because Cohen has at least some ability to, like, command other splicers, right? Like, you could be going up against them and it looks like it's bleak, it looks like it's the end and you're going to die, and all of a sudden all these splicers come in and, like, you know, maybe one of the Four Seasons by Tchaikovsky plays, and they just tear Ryan and Fontaine limb from limb.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, yeah, like a little Vivaldi going in there. Yeah, no, definitely. That's, yeah. See, and then you kind of like, you realize, like, the shit situation of, like, what your life is, but then you're like, but Cohen still does kind of want to help me. And then you go into Fort Frolic and you realize, oh, Cohen's batshit crazy.
May I opine to you, Bam?
Oh yeah, go for it.
That's real good. That's real good.
I like that a lot. And then, so here's my thing, and this is where, like, the biggest change is. So this game has multiple endings, right? It's not so much whatever road you take doesn't really change the game much, except for the ending. You gave the ending video, and I feel like we could go one step further. I feel like this game has so much going for it. Like, you could sort of change the gameplay a little bit depending on what side you choose, right? And I feel like that. So,
and Cohen, that was one point I did want to address, because, and sorry to cut you off, but, like,
no, you're good.
We couldn't talk about this game without at least talking about the little sisters, and as a corollary, the big daddies a little bit. But the unfortunate thing about what we chose is, like, they play so little into the whole Cohen subplot. And even the Atlas plot, really, like, taking him away and putting in Sander Cohen or leaving it the same, it doesn't matter. Like, the big daddies are, like, they're on a different axis, the big daddies and the little sisters. It's hard for me to bring them into the fold.
Yeah, I feel like honestly that subplot would just stay the same, because that's exactly what it is. It's a subplot, right? It exists in its own vacuum almost without the story, regardless of who did what. Like, between Ryan, Fontaine, who are the big names in the story, and of course, for our sake, Sander Cohen. Like, I feel like Tannenbaum, the little sisters, and the big daddy, all of that could stay the same.
Sure.
And could help dictate, like, what path you end up choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Except because the only real attachment you have to Tannenbaum is that she's the one who took you, right? And between her and the racist Chinese guy, what's his name? Suchong, yeah. Between those two, like, it's like, they're the ones who performed all the experiments on you, and she feels guilty about that, right? So I feel like you could keep that the same regardless. which is why we're really not touching on it, right? I don't think, I feel like to say that it doesn't matter kind of downplays it a little too much. It does matter.
It's more of a player motivation. It definitely
absolutely
is. It's kind of the one part of the game that breaks from the like, and I use this word a lot, but it fits into the games. We talk about diegetic, right? The like in-game as part of the setting motivation. It breaks from that, right? It's like, if you do this, you'll get a good thing. If you do this, you'll get a different good thing.
It's the developer and the player, not the characters.
Exactly.
No, I absolutely agree. But I feel like we could still bring them in a little bit, but maybe instead of like, so in the game you have a choice of killing them for their atom or saving them, and I feel like maybe in this one, instead you because Cohen probably wouldn't care about the atom too much.
No.
So maybe it'd be more of you capture them, and we'll get to that in just a second. So my thing is, so back to where we were. You kill Ryan and Fontaine. You figure out your tragic backstory, and then you go to confront Cohen.
And you figure out your tragic front story. Hey,
your tragic front story. That's exactly it. I feel like this is where the game presents to you a choice, because Sander Cohen has always been about choice.
Dude, I see where you're going with this, and this is awesome.
Yeah, you see Sander Cohen twice in this game.
Yep.
Both times you can either let him be or you can fight him. Either way you're rewarded. If you end up fighting him, you get a key to some kind of treasure. If you don't, he just lets you on to Ryan, and then you meet him later, and if you let the people dance, you're fine. It doesn't matter. If you disrupt the people dancing, he confronts you, you kill him, you get like a little chest. It's whatever. Yeah. It's all about like that. The only time you ever have freedom in this game about you being a slave is when you meet Sander Cohen.
Dang.
And so I feel like, so here you have an opportunity. You can either be his protege and end up sort of going along and making Rapture quote unquote beautiful by doing all these murderous things.
Can I just take the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, go for it.
Make Rapture great again.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry. I am so unrepentantly sorry.
I threw up in my mouth a little bit on that one.
That's a first, folks.
But yeah, so like, I feel like, you could end up either choosing to be his protege, or you could end up choosing to fight him and escape with Tenenbaum.
And when you started saying that, I was thinking, like, what if you kill him and then you just straight up try and become like the new leader of Rapture?
Okay, so here's the thing. I was going to get to this a little bit later, but you know what? We're already at an hour. I'll go ahead and bring this up. So at the end of so this is how I picture the end of it. Let's say you chose that route, right? If you chose like I'm going to save the little sisters and escape Rapture or whatever. And so you kill Cohen in whatever kind of, he probably has like a fight where it's like you said, he can control the splicers. So there's some grandiose fight, whatever. It ends pretty much like the normal game ends, right? You escape, you get, Tannenbaum talks about, oh, he had a family, blah, blah, blah. It was a good time. Also, I'm German, apparently. And then, because I was doing an old woman voice, and then I was like, wait, she's German. Anyway, so like, I feel like if you took that route, it would pretty much play out like the normal game, which is fine. I think it's still like the events have been different enough to guarantee or to grant it the butterfly effect, right? Even if it does end basically the same, which I do think is interesting. That it would change so much in the center and then come back out being the same.
Sure.
But no, yeah. So if you choose if you were to choose the protege route, this is how I picture it ending, is both ways you have to fight Cohen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Both ways you're fighting
absolutely.
Cohen. But so at the end, he has a new, like, you know, that masterpiece you find in Fort Frolic? No.
The quad
That's
tick?
not the what?
The quad tick?
The quad tick, yes. So instead of it being in Fort Frolic, it's in his wherever the last confrontation would be. And instead of being a bunch of splicers that are what is that stuff? It's
they plaster them, I think.
Plastered, yeah. Instead of a bunch of plastered splicers, it'd be a bunch of plastered little sisters.
Oh, my
holding
goodness.
Up pictures, and there's one last picture, and that picture, and he tells you that last picture is either going to be his face or your face. So then you have to fight him, and then you kill Cohen. You put his face there. I want to play this game. Yeah, I know, right? Me too. So you kill Cohen. You put his face there, completing his masterpiece, and then you rule over Rapture.
Okay.
And that's the quote unquote bad ending, if you will.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's a good ending?
The good ending is just like the normal.
Oh, right.
Just like the normal game.
I'm sorry.
You escape with Tannenbaum. You raise.
Hey,
young
you know what? We're gonna cut that part. That was not.
I think we're gonna leave
compelling podcasting. No, it was me forgetting what was happening.
But yeah, like, because I've never been a huge fan of like bad and good endings. That's dumb to me. I like different endings, right? Like, I still feel good about that ending, regardless if I'm the villain or not, right? Like,
well, I mean, I would argue that the bad ending is a more bad ending than the existing one. I mean, like, because it's here's the thing. And it's something that was very significant in Fort Frolic, and that is that, like, 1 out of every 50 of those splicers in the plaster is still alive.
Oh, yeah, for real.
So, like, if you're just plastering all these little sisters, like, there's a good chance they're just stuck
still alive
there.
In there. Ugh, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. Well, I just made you the power
I'm going to throw up in my mouth
suggestion. Twice in one episode.
Ugh. Anyway, no, it does, like, it definitely like a horror element to it. But yeah, so that's where I was going as far as like, yeah, if you would be the protege, the way you would end that is like, you know, you have to become the master, right? So you end up killing Cohen. And
it does, yeah, that does a nice job of bringing it full circle, because he was the master, killed all his proteges, and blah blah blah. Yeah,
and I want to end that on a quote from the game.
Okay,
it's Andrew Ryan talking about Cohen, and he says, "And now he rots in that Neverland, waiting for someone to come and tell him he's still got it." And I feel like that, to me, like that was like, that quote right there was like my driving force of how I wanted to design the game around Cohen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the whole point is literally that, like, but instead of making Neverland Fort Frolic, I was thinking, what if it was all of Rapture?
Yeah.
Right.
No, and that's good. I mean, that's a nice unifying sort of theme, which, you know, is really what makes the original game great. Is like, no matter what it does, it comes back to that sort of central it's locus.
You know, absolutely. That's it makes it so solid, is that everything sort of connects in this very like unifying structure, and that's what I feel like. That's just good storytelling, straight up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just to. Because, like, here's the thing that we sort of glossed over that I think is incredibly important, and really it remains true in both games, and that is that, like, at the end of the day, regardless of how this goal sort of takes form, whether it's killing Fontaine or, in this case, killing Cohen,
right.
It's self-actualization, right? I mean, it's delivered in a multitude of different ways, but at the end of the day, it all converges on the point where you... Jack, the player, whatever, you want to be free from control. You want to be your own agency. Person. Yes, absolutely. Agency. That's a great word to bring it all together. And so, like, it sucks to say, like, because obviously how you get there is very interesting, but ultimately it doesn't matter, because the end of the game is your character becoming their own individual, their own entity, and having their own agency, making their own choices. Right. So, like, I don't know, even if Cohen had been a good guy, like, leading you through Rapture with, like, your best interests in mind, like, I think it still would have at some point had to end with you killing him, because it does such a good job of providing that sort of concrete representation of really what this game is about.
Yeah, no, I absolutely
that
agree.
is the underlying message. Like, be your own person. Like, make your own choices. Don't fall under the sway of others.
Right.
Which, in a way, is interesting because of how much it tries to take, like, an aggressive stance against, like, objectivism.
No, I don't think it's. I'm glad you brought that up, because for me, like, as aggressive as it is against, I wouldn't call it objectivism, just like any form of self-serving properties, right? Like, it plays it both ways, right? Like the idea is like, yes, you can't be a slave to the system, but no matter what you do, you're also going to be a slave to the system. You know what I'm saying? Like Andrew Ryan, for example, is a perfect example of trying to escape that. He's trying to, like, he was the epitome of quote unquote freedom, supposedly, but like he was trapped in the own system that he created, right? So regardless, he still lost that freedom,
sure,
in one way or other. And you're a character who was born without any freedom at all. You're a slave to whatever mind controlling devices that they programmed into you, right? But somehow you are still able to find that freedom and not to beat the dead horse, but that agency to be able to make choices. And I feel like that's what I like about this game is, as much as it likes to take a big old dookie on Atlas Shrugged, because it's a terrible book, it also at the same time it takes what I would argue a very objective viewpoint, in that it's like, like either way you look at it, both things are going to happen. It's a very moderate look, a moderate viewpoint.
I have to revise my statement after hearing you say all that, because one of the key points in the story that you do kind of have to look for. I mean, it presents itself everywhere, but it's not overt about it. Is that, like, had Andrew Ryan stuck to his original sort of objectivist philosophy, everything wouldn't have been great. Would have been better than it ended up, because he went into it with that mindset, and then when that didn't work, he cracked down on the parts that didn't agree with him being at the top, right?
Yes.
And he sort of flipped it on its head. And so really, like, as much as it's saying like objectivism, whatever part of that this game is meant to sort of stand against. Being a dictator and a despot and like taking away people's free will and their ability to do this and that is also very bad.
Right.
Arguably worse, depending on who you talk to. And I don't know how the designers of the game would feel about that. So really what it comes down to is that what this game is trying to take a stand against is sort of like unflinching, very rigid sort of dogma in any sort, without without critical thought, basically.
No, absolutely, and that's
obedience.
The thing, right? That's why I like it so much, because Atlas Shrugged is a book that portrays this world in a good light, right? The author Rand. I believe she comes from like Soviet Russia, and like what the things she saw there were awful, and she comes here and she sees how wonderful capitalist society is. And then she writes a book about it being an extreme. And that's exactly what this game does. So this game, it opens your eyes and says, listen, anything in any extreme is awful. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, because once, it's like that saying, like capitalism looks, or not capitalism, I'm sorry. Communism's great on paper.
Until you run out of other people's money.
Because the whole concept is like, it doesn't matter what dogmatic system you are, running. Once you implement human beings, everything goes to shit.
So true. That's
just the way it is. And like, so I like that. I like this game takes a look and it says, like, here's capitalism at an extreme and it's awful. And at the same time, it's like, it doesn't really pick a side. It just kind of shows you what's there. And I like that. I like that about it.
Yeah. It goes from capitalism to basically fascism.
Right.
And then sort of the blowback from that, which then essentially becomes anarchy. And
yeah. And it's like, there's no real easy answer, right? At the end of the day, we have to be adaptable to sort of make up for the human condition, because we're like a plague. And on that happy note, I'm actually spent on my butterfly effects. Do you got anything else, or do you think we should wrap this up?
I'm good. I mean, I just want to say, like, this game real good.
This game is so good.
This game
and I
real
love
good.
And honestly, I'm gonna say that this episode is a big part of why I love this game, because like it gets people talking. And I for as much as I will rip on Infinite for trying to be more cognitive than it actually is, like it thinks it's more cerebral than it is.
Yeah.
It still does get people talking though, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
And I like that about this game. This game you can sit there and talk about it forever. And so, like I said, it's introspective. It makes you think. That's fun.
Yeah, we may have, we label this a comedy podcast, but crap, are we going to have to put an educational tag on this particular episode?
Oh, no. Believe me, I don't think either of us are capable of educating anybody.
I don't have no degree.
Freaking.
I'm some quick hits. I'm singing a song about quick hits.
Ooh, get it.
I hope I don't ever get dick zits, and it's time to talk about...
I cringed. I literally, I could...
Throw up in your mouth. 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 3 times in one episode. Throw up your mouth. Oh, you did it. All right. 3 times.
There we go. 3rd time's the charm. That is humor. Anyway. All right, Cam. What was it's oh boy. Okay, and on that note, what's our quick hits for tonight or for today for this episode?
There are 2 franchises in recent memory that I can think of, so alike in presentation, and so opposed in characterization. And that would have to be, obviously, listener, I know you guessed it already, the worms from Worms and the birds from the Angry Birds who are angry.
They are always angry.
They're so angry. That's the thing about them. It's the only thing about them. They are angry.
But why are the worms always angry?
That's never clearly explained, and that's part of the beauty of the game. It's like you're a worm and you have a gun, and you're supposed to blow each other up, so of course that's what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. But you put angry birds in there. They're birds, which worms hate because birds eat worms. And they're angry, which means they're probably dicks.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Put a bazooka right up in their mouth.
In their mouth.
Their kisser.
Beak. Oh, yeah. Okay, so actually, quick aside. The enemies of the Angry Birds are pigs, right?
They are pigs.
Why?
Duh.
Cause all right, so already this game is a million times better because we got birds and worms, natural enemies, nature's
birds and
diametrical
worms
creatures. Yeah, nature's birds and worms, right?
The early one gets the other. I mean, what is that?
I don't. So why pigs? That's stupid. I hate that game. Anyway,
I hope the worms win.
I hope the worms probably would win. I'm already thinking about it though, and it's so the best thing about worms is that the ground is you can destroy it, right? You destroy your environment to get to each other, sort of. So I feel like you could do those worms would win, right? They can dig themselves in.
They've got conventional weaponry and then some.
And
they can drop a big stone donkey from the sky and call in airstrikes. And you know what? I'm sorry. Those birds have it coming. They're the worst.
They kind of are the worst. They suck. Yeah, fuck them, right?
They're not sympathetic in any way. I mean, I'm sure there's cutscenes in those terrible games, which, I'll be honest. The first time I played Angry Birds, the first time ever, in the first game, 10 years ago or however freaking long ago it was, I had an okay time. It wasn't something I would have expected to spawn 20 different sequels.
Dude, that's the magic of cell phone games or phone games in general, man. They're addictive by nature. Although I never could see how that game was addictive, but it's whatever. I ain't gonna judge you. I'm not gonna judge if you got a little bird loving on you. Although I will say, how come Worms isn't a phone game? That I would play the shit out of a phone game.
Dude, I'm calling Team 17 right now.
I love Worms. That game is super. It's super.
It's so
chill.
good.
It is. It's great. You just lay back.
Cards on the table. I didn't want to talk about Angry Birds at all. I just wanted to talk about Worms. I just need to present it as change.
And what's more fun than playing Worms than if you're mortal and you get to kill birds. Yeah. These angry birds.
We get to be counterculture, which we both love.
Which can't see it, but I'm tugging on my collar.
It's just okay. I don't hate Angry Birds, right? It's just there's such a huge discrepancy between how good it actually is and how good everyone acted like it was for 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's Angry Birds.
And honestly, you can't win any culture war against kids, right? Like
they are the culture, dude. They're the future. Don't you know? We're the past, man. We've been outdated.
I've been the past since before it was cool.
Oh shit. Well, on that note, I feel like it's time to end this podcast.
Hold on. The birds and the worms would kill each other, except I think the worms again would win. But like, could we give the birds some weapons, like to at least bring some symmetry?
The birds are the
it?
weapons, though. That's the way those games work, right? So what we're doing here is like you're flinging, because the whole idea is you fling the birds, right? Like slingshot them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an island of birds that are slingshotting themselves and an island of worms, right?
But the worms can move. Like the big part of worms is like you can move, you can backflip, you get a jetpack and a grappling hook and girders and stuff.
Oh yeah, they definitely have the advantage because they're better. That you can't just not program that. The worms are better. That's a part of the game. So like what you'd have to do is you'd have to invent new birds, right? Like a bird with like a drill beak or something so that he can break through the ground or whatever. And the birds obviously are on an island, right, with their slingshot, so it's a bigger difference, or it's a bigger distance, is what I meant.
I wish the answer to all life's problems was just like invent different birds. All right, that's all I've got. Worms would win. Worms are better. Angry Birds are dumb.
All right. Well, on that note, then.
I've been Cam.
I'm Bam.
And just remember, the smallest change can have the biggest difference.
Is it the smallest ad can make the biggest difference?
I don't know.
Biggest changes? Man.
We
Thanks,
can edit
Angry
this part.
Birds, for ruining this podcast.
Oh, man.
See you guys next time. Oh, man. I think, I know it was a joke, but I actually kind of like that game now.
What, Angry Birds? Or the Angry Birds versus the worms?
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening. For updates on future episodes, you can follow us on Twitter at BCandFS. Again, that's BCandFS. If you have some fun ideas of a game to change, please feel free to email us at bcandfs@gmail.com. We want to give a special thanks to Melman for letting us use his song Flowers for the intro. It's a fantastic piece, and you can find more fantastic work like it at melman.org. Again, that's MALMEN.org. Thanks for listening.